Jack traveling for work every summer was a given. Even when I had a miscarriage, he still had to go. I couldn't help it. I secretly followed him. That was when I found out every year, during that work trip, he was actually with another woman and kid. To make it worse, his parents, friends, and co-workers were all in on it, covering for him. For 5 whole years, I was looking forward to having a kid with him. I poured my heart into our home. And what did I get in return? Waiting for Jack at the airport, I'd already noticed the woman and child. The mom looked elegant, kindness in her eyes. The little boy, looking timid, clutched at her coat and stared at the monkey keychain on my bag. It was a small fabric monkey Jack got me on our honeymoon. It was a bit worn, but it went everywhere with me. He gently tugged at it, and the monkey buzzed. The mom shot me an apologetic look, and pulled him back. That's the ladies, sweetie. Wait till daddy gets back to buy you one. The boy stubbornly glared at me, still fixated on the monkey. The mom had to ruffle his hair and take him further away. I felt a pang in my heart, my hand absent-mindedly touching my belly. I was so close to being a mom. A fall 2 weeks ago made me lose the baby. Jack and I had been married for 5 years, eagerly waiting to have a child. Every summer, he'd go on a month-long trip, but I thought this time might be different. I was hoping he'd be by my side when I needed him most. But he just looked at me apologetically. Grace, the ticket's been booked for a month. Can't anyone else go? Look at my condition. He hesitated, staring at me, then gently shook his head. Honestly, saying I wasn't angry would be a lie. I was too curious about what kind of work could pull him away from his wife, who just had a miscarriage. So, I booked an earlier flight, feeling anxious inside, worried he'd be shocked or mad when he saw me. But I just wanted to be near him, at my weakest moment. The plane landed and the crowd gathered. I got pushed to the side, protecting my still tender abdomen. Jack's tall frame stood out when he arrived. I was just about to wave when a sharp voice pierced the air. Daddy. The little boy dashed fast as an arrow, flying into his arms. Jack grinned and lifted him high, one hand casually holding the woman's. My heart pounded, the pain in my stomach spreading everywhere. The boy, clinging to Jack's neck, said in his small voice, Daddy, you haven't kissed mommy yet. Just as Jack leaned toward her, his eyes flicked to mine. He paused, the woman already smiling as she kissed him. I stood there stunned, a voice blaring in my head. She's way better at this than me. Minutes later, Jack and I were outside the airport, facing each other. That mom and her kid were watching us from a distance. My wrist throbbed from his grip. I had to pull hard to break free. His face changed slightly. What are you doing here? I couldn't help but let out a dry laugh. Guess you really do laugh when you're mad. A work trip. Jack, don't you think you owe me an explanation first? He hesitated, glancing at the distant pair, sweat faintly appearing on his forehead. I volunteered some sperm a while back, then she found me. The woman was named Linda. She ran a flower shop. That little boy, the one giving me dagger eyes, was called Leon. Hearing that name, I felt a chill wash over me. Leon, how could you? Jack. When we were newlyweds, we wrote down names. Jack pointed to what I wrote, that soft smile on his face. Our boy will be Leon, our girl Mary. He clearly remembered it too, his eyes turning away. Grace, I didn't think much of it. He explained that Linda only reached out after giving birth. The baby was small, constantly in and out of the hospital. Linda just wanted me to know his condition. She thought he might not make it. The kid survived against the odds. Linda wanted me to visit sometimes. She didn't want him thinking he didn't have a dad. I felt colder and colder. Since the beginning of our marriage, this was hidden from me. No wonder he had to travel every summer. He sighed. I'm only with him for that month. We don't see each other otherwise. I reached for his phone, but he jerked it away. Usually, he left his phone out for me to check whenever. Only now did I notice. It was the same model, but a different color, with a family photo on the back. My rage boiled over. Without thinking, I slapped him hard. Daddy, Leon cried, breaking free and charging at me. His little head smacked into my belly. Pain. I've never felt pain like that. Rushed to the nearest hospital. My forehead and back were soaked. I could only clutch my abdomen, gritting my teeth. Jack, worried, held Leon, but couldn't stop the kid from kicking at me. He babbled angrily. Don't hit my daddy, you bad woman. He kept saying it the whole way. Everyone eyed me weirdly, yet Jack didn't defend me. Linda, tense, took Leon outside. A few minutes later, she returned alone. She'd guessed who I was by now, but both of them acted in sync, not revealing the truth. The doctor told me to rest, then left. Jack tried to help me up, but I coldly pushed his hand away. His face turned dark. He looked at Linda. You take Leon home first. I'll talk to her. That simple sentence showed exactly where he stood at the moment. Any hope I had left for him shattered completely. Linda wouldn't leave. She looked at me pitifully. I know you can't accept this, but I didn't mean harm. I just want Leon to have a complete childhood. We agreed to tell him that his dad works out of town and can only see him during the summer. She was about to kneel down. I'm begging you, please don't say anything to the child. Other patients and their families in the room were watching us with curious eyes. Someone murmured, is she the homewrecker? That's outrageous. Jack heard it, but just frowned, not saying a word to defend anyone. Looking at Linda's pitiful appearance, no wonder everyone in the room sided with her. I knew at that moment, I had only myself to rely on. I sat up straight and pried open her fingers from the sheets. I've been married to him for 5 years. How old is your son this year? All eyes shot towards Jack, like arrows. Linda sank to her knees, looking pitiful and unable to lift her head. I pulled out the 4 from my hand and felt a bit dizzy getting out of bed. It seems like only after experiencing complete despair can a person grow instantly. I never expected to be this aggressive. In our 5 years of marriage, you went on a business trip every summer. Even now, after my miscarriage, you still went on your so-called business trip. So you've been hiding that you have such a big son all along. Jack, how did I not know you were a time management master? And you? I stared intensely at Linda. Did you pick someone at a sperm bank and now show up here? Were you not trying anything? What about kissing a married man publicly? My voice grew louder, in places I can't see. Who knows what you two are up to? Grace, you never imagined that Jack, who had been silent, would suddenly defend her fiercely. The man I dated for 3 years and been married to for 5. Standing up for someone else in front of me. Linda isn't trying to take anything from you. We're just doing this for the child. I couldn't understand how he could shamelessly say these things. One hand protectively behind the woman, while sweetly speaking to me. It's only 1 month out of the year. The rest of my life is yours. When Leon turns 18, we'll tell him everything. Linda also spoke timidly from behind him. Just 1 month. When the child grows up, we won't bother you anymore. It was her, not them. That hint of scheming in her words was loud and clear to me. Leon pushed the door open and rushed into Linda's arms. In his little hand, he held my fabric monkey, flaunting it at me. Jack recognized it and furrowed his brows trying to grab it back. This belongs to the lady, give it back to her, Leon. Be good. I stood up, looking coldly at the child twisting around in her arms. No need, keep it. Such little hands already so questionable. It seems just having a mom isn't enough. Jack reached out to pull me, but I pushed him away like he was electric. Don't touch me. During thunderstorms in the future, stay far away. No more sneaking around. There's nothing worth fighting over. I walked out of the hospital room onto the street. Jack followed closely behind. I wanted to tell him to get lost, but had no strength left. Linda followed gasping, with Leon in her arms. Leon began to cry loudly, face red, having his toy yanked away. All the noise made me feel irritated. Yet Jack kept trying to grab my wrist. Grace, can't we talk this out back home? I had to stop and look at him. Beside me busting you, who else knows about this? He averted his eyes, embarrassed and tense. I already knew the answer. His parents knew, his friends knew. Perhaps even his co-workers who helped cover for him on those fake business trips knew. I felt utterly ridiculous. So this whole company doing badly, cancelled vacations, that was all a lie. Your pay cut by 1/3, that too. He suddenly looked a bit impatient. Grace, I've never cut your spending. What haven't I given you? There it was. He was always so confidently justified, even when friends joked at a get-together, saying he didn't love me enough to hand over his paycheck. He would calmly say, I just don't want Grace to worry about finances. The truth is, had he given it to me earlier, this wouldn't have blown up now. I took a few deep breaths, settling my chaotic mind. I'll get a lawyer and draft up a divorce agreement as soon as possible. He looked at me, shocked, for just this little thing. Grace, this child was from before we got married. Besides, my love for you. I interrupted, holding back my urge to retch. The income during our marriage is marital property. Every cent you diverted, I'll reclaim. I said this looking straight at Linda. Her expression shifted slightly, yet she managed a strong smile. I'm not in it for the money. I haven't touched a cent. I can give it back. I boarded a flight home alone, having already contacted a lawyer before taking off. Jack seemed to want to follow me back, but Leon wouldn't allow it. A small child, turning crimson as he cried, coughing from shortness of breath. The adults busily patting his back and pinching his philtrum. Through the chaos, I coldly passed through security. Before turning off my phone, I called up my old boss and asked if he needed anyone. He was stuck in the evening traffic jam, yelling at the top of his lungs. What are you saying? Whenever you want to come back, I'm here. Gratitude welled up inside me, turning into a choked up thank you. Over 6 months ago, Jack persuaded me to quit my job to focus on getting pregnant. Then about 2 weeks ago, I had an unexpected miscarriage, leaving me in an abyss of sadness I'd never known. The feeling of being isolated and abandoned just wouldn't go away. Jack seemed detached and calm the whole time, like the sadness had nothing to do with him, like we hadn't lost a little life we were waiting for. When my flight landed, it was the middle of the night. Exhausted, I dragged myself out to find my bestie and her husband waiting, eyes red. Without a word, Tina rushed over and hugged me tight. All the emotions I'd been holding onto on the plane ride burst out, and I sobbed uncontrollably on her shoulder. Tina's husband, Lucas, my lawyer and old friend of Jack and mine, was there, awkwardly explaining he had no clue about anything. I believed him. Jack wouldn't dare let Tina know. She had never liked Jack from when we first started dating, always telling me to end it, punching my back in frustration now. You think you can handle someone who's a master at playing all sides, she'd say. On the way home, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from Jack and his parents. Tina, pissed, turned it off, saying, no talks unless it's about divorce. I was so tired, more than I'd ever been. Jack's parents had comforted me with teary eyes after the miscarriage, but knowing they were aware of Leon all along, it felt like the world turned upside down, leaving me the fool. A thought struck me like lightning. I felt chills and gripped Tina's hand. Go with me to the hospital tomorrow. Every checkup, from pregnancy to the miscarriage, happened at the women's hospital. Stepping out of the doctor's office, I was trembling all over. Tina's face turned white with fury, swearing every curse word she knew. The doctor's words echoed in my ears. Your husband asked about your records, and there was a little boy. Tina, eyes wide, held my shoulders. How could he do this behind your back? Leon wasn't just weak after birth, he had thalassemia. No wonder Jack was in such a rush to prep for pregnancy, pushing me to quit a major project to stay home and take care of myself. When I got home, Jack was already there. He looked like he hadn't slept, with dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled and tiredness all over his voice. Grace, I'm back. This month. I want to be with you. I calmly changed my shoes and took out the divorce papers, putting them in front of him. He ignored them, scrolling through his phone. Didn't you say you wanted to go to the beach? I'll book tickets when I get some days off and take you. He handed me a bag. I got you the bag you wanted. Was going to surprise you on our anniversary. I placed a pen in front of him. He stopped mid-sentence, quickly looking up at me. You're mad, but there's a limit, right? Didn't I explain? The kid was from before we were married. I donated twice. I didn't even know who she was. He rubbed his temples tiredly. If you don't like it, I won't see her again. I laughed, and couldn't stop, laughing so hard I cried. Jack, when I was pregnant, were you hoping for my cord blood? You thought it'd save Leon, right? His face turned pale as he stared at me. Grace, you. How do I know? The doctor told me you were asking eagerly while I was pregnant. If Leon's condition hadn't stabilized, would my miscarriage have sent you into despair? I slowly took off my wedding ring, let it roll onto the table, and hit the floor. I was the only one eagerly waiting for our child. Jack, you don't deserve to be a father. If you have a shred of humanity, sign the papers. Staying under the same roof disgusts me. Jack reached out to Lucas to amend the divorce agreement. He gave up all marital assets, house, car, everything to me. The agreement Lucas brought back already had Jack's signature. He says he regrets it. Things got complicated because of him. I don't know what Lucas said to him. Lucas said he cried. Tina scolded. Don't relay his messages to me. It's disgusting. Lucas scratched his head. I'm just passing a message, no sides taken. Jack moved out the day after signing, sending me several messages, mostly calls I ignored. I know you don't want to see me. I'm staying at a hotel near work. Go live in the house and take care of yourself, or I won't be able to relax. That thing wasn't on purpose. She mentioned cord blood. I just asked the doctor. Grace, I've always been excited about our baby, just like you. That feeling hasn't changed. I deleted them all, feeling insulted by their presence on my phone. Word about my divorce from Jack spread fast. His parents were the first to show up at my parents' house with loads of bags, trying to be humble. But my parents chased them out with a broom. My dad was still fuming when he called me. He couldn't believe that people their age could be so clueless. If they wanted to talk, why not go directly to him instead of coming to us? My parents have always liked Jack, saying he looked decent and had a good job, but they stood by me quite firmly when it came to the divorce, especially after the whole umbilical cord blood thing. My dad started calling him an idiot instead of a treasured son-in-law. I didn't expect Linda to show up. The brat was just like at the airport, running into me and demanding harshly, where's my dad? Where did you hide him? He threw the old, tattered monkey plush right in front of me and stomped on it with hatred. "Take it back. Who wants your stupid stuff?" Then he began banging on my door, shouting, "Dad, come out. It's Leon." I watched Linda in disbelief. She was embarrassed, but there was undeniable hatred in her eyes. Holding Leon close, she whispered, "The kid wants to see his dad. I don't have a choice. He won't even take my calls." I pulled out my phone with a smile. "Want me to dial for you?" Her eyes lit up hopefully. "It'd be best if he'd come. All I ask is for him to talk to Leon properly." My smile didn't reach my eyes and turned cold again. "Why should I? I've no obligation to take care of your mess." Her face lost its color, and she stood up straight, mumbling, "Miss Grace, do you really need to hold a grudge with a child?" Her gaze drifted to my belly. "You almost became a mother too. Don't you understand a mom would do anything for her child?" I looked at her, amused. "Anything, including using him as leverage to repeatedly destroy someone else's family." "Linda, I'm curious what motivated you to have him. Before he was born, you didn't even know who the dad was, did you?" I edged closer, watching her grow tense and uneasy. "A voluntary donor wouldn't reveal personal info. How did you find Jack?" "I'm not trying to protect Jack's privacy, just curious." She flushed red, covering Leon's ears, mumbling, "I just wanted the child to be healthy. I never meant to hurt you." I recalled that familiar kiss she gave at the airport, and laughed softly as I crouched to smooth the creases in Leon's clothes. "Answer me one thing, Leon, and I'll tell you where your dad is." He brushed aside his mom's hand, gruffly asking, "Really?" I nodded. "Tell me, when dad visits, where does he sleep?" Linda tried to cover his mouth, but it was too late. "Of course, with my mom." I chuckled at the defiant little Leon and pressed the speaker button. Jack's urgent voice came through. "Grace, let me explain. It's not what you think." Leon heard his voice and excitedly tried to grab my phone. "Dad, it's Leon. Where are you?" Unable to reach, he kicked and hit me, but this time, I didn't tolerate it. I grabbed him by the collar and pulled him back. "What are you doing?" Linda caught him anxiously, glaring at me. I laughed coldly into the phone, pronouncing every word. "Get over here and take your son from my door. And Jack, if this woman comes here again, I won't mind letting more people know you have a kid." I hung up and keyed in the door code. Leon was still screaming and crying behind me, but the door slammed shut, separating them outside. Jack didn't come to pick them up. It was his parents who showed up. They knocked sincerely while I busied myself cooking noodles in the kitchen, turning the TV volume way up. After who knows how long, the noise outside died down. I shared the story with Tina and her husband later, treating it as gossip. Tina sneered, "Coward," sending his parents to deal with it. After eating, I cleaned up the kitchen and responded to my old boss about when to start. Then I picked out suitable work clothes in my closet. Opening it, I noticed a row of Jack's clothes still hanging. He left in a hurry and only took a couple of changes. Maybe he thought our divorce still had room for negotiation. I hesitated, then snapped a picture and sent it to him. "I won't be here tomorrow. Come get your stuff or I'll toss it." His message box showed he was typing, but I didn't get a response by the time I had finished my bath and climbed into bed. Instead, there was a new friend request. "If you were truly happy, he wouldn't come back to us every year." I ignored it and shared a screenshot on Twitter. I recalled Tina saying some men lose their character post-breakup. My post went viral overnight, with friends I hadn't heard from in years confronting Jack in the comments. Of all the relationships that could fall apart, this was unexpected. "I remember how hard you pursued Grace, only to let her down like this." It seemed like Jack had been up all night, sending countless messages. The top one was brief. "I never meant to hurt you." To me, it felt like being stabbed countless times and hearing someone say they didn't realize it would hurt, or bleed or kill. I composed myself, dressed up, and headed to my new job. On the way, I was thinking a lot. Since we started dating, I intertwined my life with Jack's. Now, I'm finally stepping back, re-evaluating myself, no longer seeing myself as just someone's wife. I can face all that happened between us more clearly. From the start, he wasn't decisive. He never saw any of this as harmful. Our trust crumbled, and love faded faster than we imagined. When I got home from work, it didn't look like Jack had been there. I rolled up my sleeves, tossed his things into a bag, one by one, threw them outside, took a picture, and sent it to him. I told him to show up on time for the certificate after the cooling off period. Then I deleted him, not blocked, just wiped clean. Memories of our past love vanished completely. The second day at my new job, the receptionist said I had flowers. Roses, bloody red, wrapped with irises, no card. I just glanced and tossed them into the trash can nearby. Each day after, same ones arrived. On the 10th day, I called the flower shop number I found. Linda's soft voice picked up quickly. "Hello, this is Leon's flower shop." I controlled my emotions, speaking slowly, the cooling off period ends soon, can't you wait? Linda, startled, stammered, you misunderstood me. I just wanted to help him. I chuckled in frustration. You two are something else, both claiming to help each other. I added, before you do anything, ask Jack if he's ever sent me flowers. I'm allergic. He never crossed that line when he pursued me. Linda was silent for a moment. Leon is sick. The child really needs him. He's been staying at the hospital. Grace, the child is innocent. I hung up. If it were another kid, maybe I'd think about the child I lost. But not for Leon. Innocent, I am too. The cooling off period was up. Jack was late. Sweat beaded his forehead as he hesitated on the steps. I glanced at him and went inside. He followed with a sigh. Grace, this is for you. He pulled out a fabric monkey from his pocket, still with the tag on, just like the one I had before. We got it at a small town on our honeymoon. Handmade, not mass-produced. He mumbled. I went back. Luckily he was still there. His hand stretched out, eyes full of hope. Lips pressed, I said, let's go. I only have a 2-hour break. I didn't take it, even though it looked just like the old one. At the signing, Jack held my hand. My cold stare seemed to pierce him, making him lower his head. Grace, won't you reconsider? You know I love you. I pulled my hand away, and signed quickly. Tossed him the pen with a genuine laugh. Jack, if you'd ever considered my feelings during the last 5 summers, we wouldn't be here. He had so many chances to be honest, so many moments to turn back. Silent, his hand shook as he gripped the pen. Tears dropped onto the paper. Quickly, he turned away, covering his eyes. His normally neat handwriting was anything but that day. Leaving, he called after me tearfully. Grace, will you ever forgive me? I paused, looking back at the hope in his eyes. If karma exists, I hope every bolt hits you. I'm not that forgiving. I loved deeply, and I hate just as deeply. Bad luck in love might mean good luck at work. My boss was soon quite pleased with his decision. With a promotion and raise, it was off-season, and he gave me a long vacation. Tina and I quickly booked a spontaneous trip. We tanned on the beach, and sipped drinks late into the night. Near the end of our trip, it started to drizzle. The beach had only a few people. It felt calm. A child's piercing cries disrupted the peace. Tina and I glanced over, pausing. Leon was throwing a fit on the sand, kicking up waves of it, screaming, I won't leave. I want to keep digging. Linda stood, helpless. Beside her, my former husband, who I hadn't seen in months, was visibly frustrated. Maybe too noisy. Jack awkwardly glanced around. When our eyes met, he froze, then walked over. I noticed Linda's tense look in the distance. Jack hesitated. You moved. I went looking for you a couple of times. Not really the time for small talk, so I kept a straight face. He awkwardly touched the ring on his finger, still our wedding band. A bit intentional. Tina laughed, teasing, Jack, you have time off to bring your kid out to play. Jack shot me a quick guilty look, cheeks flushing. I quit. I didn't point out what I knew. Lucas said he'd been struggling, losing projects. The company first reassigned him, then cut his pay. He quit out of pride. Linda, holding the child, joined him, clinging to his arm. Her look was slightly challenging, with a fake smile. What a coincidence, running into you like this. Jack's face turned dark as he stepped aside, putting distance between us. Her fake smile instantly fell, and her glare held more spite towards me. Leon kept yelling for Jack to pick him up, but Jack acted like he didn't hear. The kid angrily waved his hand at me, shouting, bad woman. I looked at him and calmly said, say that again, and the bad woman will tear up a brat's mouth. He was about to speak again, but Linda covered his mouth with her hand. Jack looked exhausted, saying, why don't you guys go back first? The coldness in his words made Linda's face change for a moment, but she just gritted her teeth and turned to leave. Jack kept staring at me like he was gathering some enormous courage. Grace, can we talk? I didn't move. Whatever it is, just say it here. Tina was listening intently, although her eyes were full of mockery. Jack sighed. Leon, that kid's had several episodes. She's been pressing me to have another child. I laughed. Congratulations. Don't you just love ready-made fatherhood? His face changed colors, red to white. Grace, you know I don't love her. I don't want to push myself for a child. He looked at me pleadingly. Even if I've made mistakes, don't I deserve happiness? I held back my urge to say something harsh, and gave a perfunctory nod. Starting over and no turning back. You still have a lot to learn. The light in his eyes dimmed as he muttered, I really miss our past, everything moving the way we wanted. Tina interrupted his nostalgia. Hey, maybe check on that cheap kid of yours. Seems like there's a scuffle going on. 2 kids were locked in a fierce tussle on the beach. Linda kept screaming, don't touch my son, he's not well. But it was Leon, on top, pulling and biting. It was over the toy the other kid had, that caused him to rush and knock the other down. Jack awkwardly separated the kids, continuously apologizing, but the other parents, not willing to back down, grabbed him, and a fight broke out. Meanwhile, Tina and I turned to walk away. The rain started pouring harder, screams and shouts echoing behind us. More and more people ran past us, heading towards the chaos on the beach. After getting caught in the rain, I rushed to the hotel to shower. My phone buzzed incessantly by the bed. Tina was busy sweet-talking Lucas over video. I don't remember when I fell asleep, but the night was lit by several flashes of lightning. When I woke up in the morning to check out, everyone in the lobby was whispering, "Did you hear? A man and a woman died on the beach yesterday. It was during a fight. Someone pulled a knife. The guy died horribly. Help was there, but then he got struck by lightning multiple times. Sounds like the woman started it. Someone saw her come back with the knife. There was a kid taken to the hospital too, not sure of the condition." I glanced distantly at the beach outside. A crowd gathered, obscuring the scene. My phone had a lot of missed calls, the number somewhat familiar. Not thinking much, I checked out and headed to the airport with Tina. Passing the beach, there was something shiny on the ground. I couldn't help but stop and look. It was Jack's wedding ring, lying lonely in the sand. Tina answered a call, her face turning pale as she looked at me. Lucas said, "Jack, he." I looked out to the calm sea, betraying none of last night's turmoil. The pain seemed to fade away like the receding tide. I stepped over the ring and kept walking. "Let's go home. Don't want to miss our flight." Turns out, karma really does exist. The end.